since you can't play these games alone, I've brought together a wonderful cast of players who I know are all chomping at a bit to get into this. So we will get into this right away. I will please ask them to introduce themselves to you. Tell us who they're playing, and we'll take it from there. And I would like first to introduce the man, the myth, the legend from Texas, Monsieur Adrian.
Hi, my name is Adrian. Good evening, everyone. And tonight I will be playing a penny dreadful known as Spring-Heeled Jack amongst the London commoners. His real name is Henry de Beresford, though he's Irish. He's got a very French-sounding name. And he is the third Marquesse of Waterford. He is a detective, very much kind of like a old-school Gaslight, Batman. He's a very, very rich man who took it upon himself amongst the upper class of the London elite. Had a little bet that he took upon some of his colleagues that he would spook a couple of criminals out there. He did it initially for funsies, but then things started to get kind of serious, and things were witnessed. And he caught himself into a life that was a little bit over his head, trying to keep two identities. Historically, this character was the Marquesse that was known, that coined the term. Well, people coined the term, painted the town red. So he was a very drunken, wild playboy, but also had this kind of secret identity where he was going into the streets of London, and people said he had the ability to jump over walls and over buildings, and he looked like a demon or a bat. So it's
very much an influence for the Batman, I would say.
For sure. So I'm looking forward to see what this character brings to the story. I know in this time of the story, he's looking to retire or leave that life behind him, and we will see how this dark tale brings everything back. So looking forward. Does he have a
costume?
He does kind of have a costume. It's he does have like a kind of like an Italian cape, and he does have a mask, which he does wear with some kind of goggles, and some boots. So I don't want to spoil everything, but
absolutely,
we got some stuff to come. So looking forward to it.
Awesome, thanks, Adrian, and super happy to have you here to play with you again. Always great fun. Next up, we have Stephanie. What's up, Stephanie?
Hey, I'm good. Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie, back again. Tonight, I will be playing a spin on Bluebeard's last wife. Her name is Lillian Durant. She is a writer known primarily for her studies in Enochian and the language of angels and angelology. She's reasonably well off after the tragic sudden demise of her husband a few years ago, but she's managing. She's doing just fine, and I'm sure it's going to be a fun night for her.
And I'm sure that the husband got everything he deserved.
Oh yeah, I mean, as much as can. It's so tragic, really.
I know, very tragic. We shall be mourned for 30 seconds.
Somewhere someone may warn him, yes.
Maybe. And perhaps there are some secrets to be revealed about the whole affair. We will see in due time. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Pleasure to have you here again. I always love playing with you. We've had great fun in Vaesen. So thank you for joining us on this little adventure. Next up, someone who is making their first appearance in one of my games, someone I'm very excited to play with because I got to play with them in a game over on Lost Caravan, and we had a great time, and somehow our characters survived the horror death house. So, I figured, why not invite Kian over to come play?
Hello, everybody. My name is Kian, and tonight I am playing Emrys, who relatively recently escaped from a penal colony out in Australia. And is totally here for nothing suspicious and has no personal motivations, and is just kind of a little guy hanging out. He is, not the friendliest. He has some connections to the criminal underworkings of this time period of London. This is a take on the Artful Dodger character from Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. So that's kind of what we got going. He's kind of a spooky little guy, so I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Cool. Yeah. Totally look forward to seeing what Emrys gets up to. It's great because I'm kind of like, privy to some secrets and some stuff in the back, but I always enjoy being surprised by the players and seeing what develops in the game because it's an organic process. Things happen that you don't expect, and, so we'll see what happens. But thanks so much, Kian, for agreeing to come and play with us here. I'm super thrilled and chuffed, as I like to say, to have you on board. And finally, someone who doesn't need an introduction, but who will give an introduction to anyways, because that's what we're doing right now. JD. Talk to me, JD. What's going on?
Hey, I am JD. I am going to be playing Dr. Henry Ellis. He is a contracted medical examiner recently back in the area. Nothing strange about him. He's just here to examine bodies and not much else.
Which is a total normal thing to want to do.
It is, yeah. There's absolutely nothing going on with him.
I like that JD's just the cagiest. Everyone else is like, oh yeah, so this is like the whole history of my character. And JD's like, I'm a guy.
I'm a guy.
I cut bodies up. So it's all. Nothing to see here. Move along. Thank you so much, JD. Pleasure to see you again. Let's get into this couple shout outs, and then we will fire up this whole thing. I will be using tonight some maps and some music by some amazing people. Oops, see, I pushed the wrong button. So I knew that was gonna. It's my first night with the Stream Deck, so just allow me my errors. Yes, so I will be using the music you're hearing tonight is by Ivan Dutch, a composer whose stuff is available online. Do visit Mr. Dutch's website. Tons of great stuff for people to use on their site, on their shows and on their games. Excellent music, so that's what you'll be listening to tonight. And I will be using some maps from a good friend of mine, Mr. Solution. Not that we're using maps per se, but we will be using some background images and so on and so forth that were created by Solution. Do give Mr. Solution a little check. He does run games on his Twitch and creates absolutely amazing maps. The game we're playing tonight is Penny Dreadful. It is a slightly modified version of Vaesen by Free League, which I love very dearly. And the game, of course, is based on the TV show by John Logan, the TV show of the same name. If you would like to get involved and help out the players, you can throw a couple of pennies at them, except here we call them bits. For 100 bits, you can buy the player of your choice an advantage. They may or may not need them depending on some of their choices and actions tonight. I, of course, am Bleakseason. I appreciate all your support and being here. Thanks so much for doing that. And without further ado, see, that didn't work at all. Man, everything's going bonkers tonight. Without further ado, my friends, are you ready to dive into this?
Oh, yes.
Ready.
That's what they all say. It is London, 1892. In the heart of 19th century London, a city steeped in history and cloaked in an air of ancient mysteries, the streets are a labyrinth of cobblestone pathways leading to dark and foreboding corners. Gothic architecture looms overhead, casting eerie, elongated shadows that seem to whisper secrets of ages past. The atmosphere is heavy with an occult mystique that hangs in the air like a shroud, tugging at the senses of those who dare to tread these winding, gaslit alleys. London Bridge stands as a sentinel, its stone arches spanning the murky waters of the Thames, where the fog gathers in ghostly tendrils, concealing the river's secrets. The gas lamps lining the streets flicker like spectral flames, casting wavering halos of light that barely penetrate the inky darkness. Hidden within the labyrinthine alleyways, arcane bookshops with dusty leather-bound tomes beckon those who seek forbidden knowledge. The scent of aged parchment mingles with the faint aroma of burning incense, drawing inquisitive souls into their mystical embrace. Peddlers of potions and elixirs ply their wares, promising remedies for ailments of the body and the soul, while seers and fortune tellers read the future in tea leaves and tarot cards. The city's inhabitants move through the night, their footsteps echoing on the cobblestones like the whispers of the dead. Amidst the fog-choked Thames and towering spires of Victorian London, our tale unfolds, reminiscent of the penny dreadfuls that once captivated audiences with their tales of terror. But beware, for this is no mere work of fiction. This is a living, breathing nightmare brought to life. As we delve deeper into this eerie realm, we shall encounter enigmatic characters with secrets as dark as the night itself. A doctor capable of both cold logic and unbridled passions, a writer with a blood-stained past and who speaks with the tongues of angels, a lost, wandering young man whose gift is too often a curse, and a detective whose technological prowess and flair for the dramatic perhaps hide a darker side. In this gothic 19th century London, the occult is not a mere fantasy. It is a palpable presence, lurking in every corner, waiting to ensnare those who dare to explore its treacherous depths, where the line between the natural and supernatural is blurred, and where the very essence of the occult permeates every facet of existence. Welcome to a London where darkness reigns, and the mysteries of the occult are woven into the very fabric of the city's soul. Our tale begins on a cold, wet, mournful October evening near the south gate of Regent's Park. There a well-known figure waits, his bowler at the perfect angle, a cane helping him stand straight after a vicious injury recently visited on his leg has left him all but lame. A deep melancholy now also injures his soul, for he has, less than a year ago, lost a very dear friend, the dearest, perhaps. This is Dr. John Watson, and he mourns the death of his friend, Sherlock Holmes, and waits in the mist for a few specific individuals he has never met, but who all received a letter recently, penned by his very hand. This letter read,
London, October 1892. My friend, I hope you will forgive me such formality, but having now read the expectedly rather thorough notes my friend and former colleague Sherlock Holmes, may he rest in peace, wrote about you, I feel that a certain sense of intimacy has set in. However, I shall endeavor to not only be brief, but also to eschew familiarity going forward. You may be surprised to hear that the famous detective Sherlock Holmes would have such detailed notes about you. Well, I can assure you that, first and foremost, he intended no harm from it. Rather, if he wrote at such lengths about you, it's because you did something few, very few indeed, ever managed to do. You surprised him. I will happily give you all his notes to dispose of as you see fit, but before, I would like to ask a favor. There has been a murder. A most strange death in Paradise Alley, and I dare say with some degree of conviction that, were Sherlock Holmes still among us, it is a case that would have piqued his curiosity to the utmost. However, he is not here, but you are. From what I gather in these notes, you have certain peculiar talents that I believe would make you rather perfectly suited to help me elucidate this particular mystery. I ask only that you meet with me to discuss it. I will give you your dossier, regardless of whether you choose to help or not. But the details of this particular murder are such that, I have little doubt, you will be as engrossed and curious as my dearly departed friend would have been. I can also guarantee you some money for your bother. If you will, meet me tomorrow at 7 p.m. sharp near the south gate of Regent's Park. I will recognize you. Your dedicated servant, Dr. J. Watson, HMR.
Indeed, Watson awaits, and as Lillian arrives, first on scene. How does Lillian get to Regent's Park? It is just after dark. The area is quiet, few people walking around. There's that omnipresent fog just sort of winding its way through the trees and through the lampposts and along the cobblestones there, streets. How is Lillian approaching?
She would have taken a carriage, but had it stop a street over and then walked the rest of the way. She's 39. She has pale blonde hair, green eyes. She dresses well, but practically. So at the moment, she has a dark coat on and a hat and carries an umbrella with her and is making her way somewhat cautiously but curiously over to Regent's Park.
You don't have any difficulty seeing Watson. It's very rare for people to just hang around here waiting, and he seems a little nervous. Perhaps he keeps looking at his watch and sort of scanning around. He seems to have difficulty moving a little bit, as I was saying, because of his of an injured leg, and he's got a cane. But he is an older gentleman who looks very, very respectable, very well dressed, nice little beard, looking perhaps a little drawn and tired. Watson's been through a lot recently. You come up on him, and he suddenly sort of turns and sees you, and he's like, I'm very sorry, miss. I apologize. I hope I didn't scare you.
You did not, Dr. Watson, I presume.
Yes, I am. Absolutely. Would you happen to be Miss Lillian Durant, then?
That is me. Yes, your letter was most curious.
Oh, yes. um, I'm very sorry for the theatrics. I certainly didn't mean to upset you in any way, and I hope I haven't. I especially.
You have not.
Oh, well, I'm very glad to hear it. Especially the mention, as I know that mention of someone having kept notes on you. But I will hold true to my word right here. And he reaches into his coat, and he pulls out a little stack of papers that have been bound together with a piece of rope, and he kind of flips through him, and he takes one out, and he's got your name. He's like, I know it may be difficult to believe me, but this has everything Sherlock Holmes had on you. Did you know who Sherlock Holmes was by any chance?
I've read along with your publications.
Ah.
Very fascinating affairs. And she very quickly takes the file with her notes.
Absolutely. So we had very strange adventures, but they were also very exciting and very fulfilling. And well, it's a very sad time indeed that unfortunately Holmes is no longer with us. However, I believe from what I've read, the little bit of what I've read in his notes about you, and you'll see that they're very respectful. Holmes was simply ever so curious about things he couldn't explain fully. I assure you, he intended no harm by this, and I'll say more. I think perhaps one of our other friends that we're expecting here is arriving. And how is the Marquesse arriving on the scene?
He will arrive late, which is right on time for him, in a very, very nice carriage, being driven by his associate/assistant, Mr. York, older gentleman with glasses and a very nice coat. He himself will ride up, will get onto the Southgate Street, will not bother being incognito in any way, and the carriage will just stop, and he will just remain seated in his carriage until he finds a safe time to leave it. So we're just basically parked like an Uber right outside the South Gate.
The the man who's driving your vehicle is an older man with a shock of white hair and little round glasses, and he's wearing a little Macintosh, and it's the collar's kind of pulled up, and he'll pull and he'll sort of scan around the area, and then he'll lean down towards the window and go, "I believe we have arrived, sir. I see one man and one woman waiting by the gate. Shall I go investigate?"
Yes, please do. And he will take a swig from some wine bottle that he has inside the carriage.
And York will climb down, and you'll see this older gentleman who seems to look quite spry and in pretty good shape, sort of come walking towards you, Lillian and Watson, and you'll come over. Miss, sir, my name is York. And he'll bow very, very formally. I represent the Marquesse, who would like to inquire whether or not you are the people he is here to meet. Mr. John Watson? Yes, indeed. I'm Mr. Watson. Would your patron wish to join us, or should we join him? I'll inquire, sir. Ma'am. He turns around and goes to the door. That is indeed Mr. John Watson. He is inquiring whether you would like to join them, or whether they should join you here in the comfort of your vehicle.
He will stick his head outside to see if it's raining or misting as usual.
It's not, but York's got a, umbrella at the ready if it does.
Very well. And he will join. He will slowly creep out, get his clothing together, and wait for Mr. York to close the door behind him, and then he will slowly approach.
He follows you a respectful couple of feet from behind. Mr. I'm sorry, Mr. Beresford, is it, or should I call you Marquesse?
You can call me Marquesse.
Very well. It's an honor to meet you, sir. May I introduce Miss Lillian Durant? Miss Durant is a writer. This is the Marquesse of Beresford.
Pleased to meet you.
Pleasure.
I'm very thankful for you to take the time to come and join us tonight, sir. I appreciate that my letter may have seemed a little strange and perhaps a little alarming. However, I do want, and he pulls out his little thing and he goes through it and he pulls out an envelope with your name on it. I do want to assure you that my former friend, well, he's still my friend, he's no longer with us. My friend Sherlock was a most discreet soul that ever was, and he hands you the paper, and none of this has made it anywhere else. You can rest assured that your secrets are totally yours to keep, and I deeply appreciate you taking the time to come and see us here tonight.
My condolences to your friend. If I had the opportunity to see him one more time, I would have punched him in the face. I think I owe him that.
He did have that effect on people, did Holmes. Not easy to get along with, but once you get to know him, very incredible person. But he thought the same of you, Marquesse. He certainly felt that you were a very intriguing person, and, well, he had no easy answer for you, and I think that perhaps more than anything else, really, well, he points to the letters and says, you can see what came of that. Yes, we are. There's one more person that should be arriving. I don't think I see them. Where is Emrys at this particular juncture?
Emrys would be lurking behind a corner, very nearby, enough to hear the conversations happening, but is not trying to be on time, would kind of just be keeping an eye out. But before he came around the corner, you would see a very scraggly black dog that would kind of just trot across the way and keep a safe distance from the rest of the group, but have a seat just there. And shortly after, Emrys would follow, wearing a very casual shirt, a jacket with a high collar. They intentionally kind of turn their face away from the light, so it's hard to get a read on exactly what his face looks like. But he's got hair that's kind of tucked back into the back of the collar, and he approaches very calmly, very stiffly toward the rest of the group.
I believe here is the last person we are waiting for. Emrys, John Watson here. I'm sorry, I don't know the name of your friend here, and he kind of, gestures to your your companion.
This is Clever, and Clever will stay back as Emrys approaches.
Oh, well, Clubber must have led a very clean life, as Holmes had no secrets on him. Not that the rest of you have not led clean lives either. Oh, never mind. Thank you so much for joining us. May I introduce Miss Lillian Durant and the Marquesse de Beresford?
Emrys kind of nods, but does not look at either of the two. Keeps his eyes trained on Watson.
Yes, well, and he flips through the envelopes and hands you the one with your name on it. I guess perhaps we should get down to brass tacks, as they say. I have asked you to... Well, I would like your considered opinions on a matter of some delicacy. You see, there was last night a murder, a very strange murder, in the Limehouse district. This murder is one that is, well, perhaps beyond what we would consider the normal ken of men. I certainly believe that had Holmes been around, he would have been very interested in this particular, this egregious murder. It is very difficult for me to talk about it, and I fear that if I were to give you too many details, you simply would not believe me. But if you would be willing, I would be incredibly grateful if you'd be willing to accompany me to a small medical examiner's office not too far from here. It is not at Scotland Yard, but it is an office that is hired by Scotland Yard. And my friend, Inspector Lestrade, has asked me to come and take a look. But I'm afraid that this particular situation is beyond even my own ability to elucidate. If you would be so kind, I would be incredibly grateful if you would come with me, see the situation, and offer any piece of advice you might have on this. I have promised you some recompense for this, and I will be happy to do this, but know that you would also be doing a very great service. Well, I was going to say to the inhabitants of this city, but I'm afraid that this might have some repercussions that are perhaps a little bit more far-reaching than that. Would you be so kind as to accompany me?
Well, you've gathered us all this far.
After so ominous a statement, I will admit my curiosity is piqued.
There must be some reason why you sent for all of us. I'm curious to see what exactly it is, so I will follow.
Very well. I greatly appreciate it. Marquesse, would it be possible for us to ride in your vehicle there?
Yes.
Very well.
Yes, I was just about to offer it.
Oh.
By all means, Mr. York.
The very soul of graciousness. Thank you very much. My friends, if you would, and with some difficulty, he sort of manages over. Just before you get on this thing, is there anything anyone wants to do or check out or whatever? Or are you just, for now, going to go along with the ride and see where this sort of leads?
So far, Lillian's just kind of assessing the group, and she's tucked her notes into her coat, so they're safe and secure there, but she's just assessing everyone for now.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, I would love to read my dossier, kind of sit back for a moment and kind of gloss over it and just catch. I am looking for anything related to my time in the penal colony.
There is nothing. There is mention of your time there, but Holmes indicates that while he is aware that there are probably wonderful answers to be found there and perhaps more mysteries, he is not inclined at the time of writing to pursue it further, and unless he has cause to in the future, he believes he's sort of happy with what he's found. Your time here is fairly well detailed. You will notice that in certain cases, It is always really respectfully written. He talks around certain things, or he kind of glosses over other things, or he uses a language that, kind of makes, less savory things perhaps, you know, sort of go down easier. But um, he definitely had a good grasp of who you were and what you'd been doing.
Okay. I will fold up the dossier, and when I sit in the carriage, I will claim a very large portion of the seat to keep my distance from everybody else. And Clever will know to follow the carriage, but not to get inside of it.
Okay. And as for the Marquesse,
As the Marquesse is, watching people come in, he wants to check, just observe if Watson's limp is legitimate. As he's walking up, getting on his cane, getting into the carriage, giving him a hand to assist, just kind of checking him out. I want to see if he's in the up and up. Does this wound look legitimate? I've been wounded before. Does this look legit? Do I need a roll?
does it look legit? No, I will say that your eye is sharp enough and your knowledge is sharp enough to know that he is not faking it. You get the feeling that it's probably an old wound that has been exacerbated. And you kind of get the feeling, in fact, that he's probably going through quite a lot of pain and is kind of struggling with it and trying to put on a brave face. But
Gotcha.
you certainly, his age, he's fairly advanced now, and the adventurous life he's led.
Indeed.
So you
All right.
you don't get the feeling that he's
Okay.
faking
Well,
it
as
to make
knowing that, as everyone gets into the carriage, I will open up a crystal bottle and ask if anyone would like wine, and pull out some wine glasses. First one for Watson, because if he's in obvious pain, I would like to relieve some of it with some kind of liquid cure. So I will immediately pour him one, regardless if he responds or not.
he'll be like, very kind of you. Well, I'm sorry. I don't normally make it a point to imbibe on in the middle of work, but given the circumstances and the damp and this leg, I believe I will, if you don't mind. But just
Just a little.
just
We'll pour two more glasses and start handing them around, and we'll wait and see if anyone partakes.
Lillian does not, but she offers her thanks and she accepts the glass.
Okay. It's good wine.
Emrys will take the glass and kind of raise it in thanks, but not say anything.
All right.
I would. He takes a sip and. Oh, this is very good. I would like to give you an opportunity, if you like, to ask me questions. However, I do believe some things are better seen than to have them told to you. So, if it's all the same to you, I think perhaps we might wait. But if you have some more general questions that you'd like to ask about myself, or how we came to be here, or anything else, please feel free to do so. The ride won't be very long. We should be there in less than 5 minutes.
Must be a very curious murder to have requested the aid of several people from a variety of different backgrounds.
It is indeed a most curious murder. There are many such murders, unfortunately, in a city like London. We live in a very dark age. However, well, I do believe this one would have confounded even Sherlock. It has, well, I didn't want to speak too much of it for now, but it has a certain unnatural undertone. As you can imagine, myself and Holmes were fairly good hands at dealing with matters of logic and matters intellectual and so on and so forth. But, well, these were somewhat outside of our area of expertise, if you will. And this is why I've brought you together. You have all, at one point or another, been involved in things that may give you, well, perhaps a deeper understanding of the situation at hand. The chief medical examiner that Inspector Lestrade has hired, one Dr. Ellis, a very good man, very thorough. And he has uncovered a few strange things also. And he was the one who first put into Inspector Lestrade's ear the notion that there was something strange with this. And, well, Lestrade reached out to me, as he always does, and, well, here we are. But you'll meet Dr. Ellis very shortly. As I said, a brilliant surgeon. Very good man. If no one has anything else to sort of put forth, the rest of the ride will be fairly quiet. A bit of a drizzle starts as you're riding, and you can hear the little click of it on the top of the what kind of vehicle do you have, Marquesse? Is it like the standard, 2-horse drawn, double-seater kind of thing?
Yeah, or yeah, I would say let's not go overboard with a 4-horse one. We'll just do a 2. It's not like a Bentley or anything like that.
But
The
very
carriage
comfortable,
version.
very well appointed.
Yeah,
4 horses are for parties.
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. That's it for the New Year's Eve
bottles
parties.
clinking inside the door.
Exactly. Yeah, this is more of the hey, we're just gonna meet some random people in a park. Let's not bring out the good one. As we are riding though,
Yes.
the Marquesse will kind of motion over to the writer, Miss Durant. Is it Miss? Is it Miss Durant?
Miss, yes.
I know that you're a writer. I do apologize. I have not read any of your books. Do you write books? Are you more of a journalist? What is your area of expertise? What do you write?
A little bit of fiction, but also some very niche academic studies. I suppose academic would be a generous term, but little of both.
Are you associated with any university for your academic writings?
I am not. More circles of interest, so to speak, people with similar inclinations, similar fascinations with more esoteric areas of research.
And I'm assuming since you have been called to such a place with such people that it has something to do with the occult?
That was my suspicion. I'm not certain what else I could offer to such an investigation.
Very charmed to meet you.
Likewise.
And then he will look over and like, I don't think he would like to talk. It's like, cheers. Just look out the window.
If you have any questions, Marquesse, feel free. And Emrys is not doing anything to hide how put upon he feels by this entire situation.
Well, Emrys, I couldn't help but notice, have we met before? Do you ever go down towards the port by the river and have a drink from time to time? I've known to mingle with some of the sailors down by there, and I was wondering if your face looks, from what I can see, somewhat familiar. Have we fought before? Have we ever been in a fist fight? I can't remember. But somehow your face look familiar.
Emrys does smile at this. I make my way around a lot of the areas of town, and I have fought a lot of people, so it is very possible, Marquesse, but I have to admit, you didn't seem to leave a lasting impression if we have come across each other before.
Well, I was probably wearing a wig, and I was probably drunk, but if we did fight, and whatever you did hear about me, I apologize. I'll probably recognize you once your fist hits my face. But until then, we will continue our frivolity. We'll
Hopefully it will not get to that point.
Indeed. And Mr. Watson, Dr. Watson.
Yes, Marquesse.
I've been hearing a lot of conflicting reports, but I was never told how Mr. Holmes died. Not to bring up terrible memories. But
Yes, unfortunately, were you... Uh, do you know a man by the name of Professor Moriarty?
I've heard of him.
Well, he and Holmes shared a particularly intense enmity, and, well, I'm sad to say that, unfortunately, both Mr. Holmes and Professor Moriarty fell to their deaths at Rackenbach Falls at the end of a long and torturous investigation. It's almost mythological, almost, this conflict the two had, this true contest of wills, two men so brilliant yet so different, and so they could have been great friends perhaps in other situations, but as it were, they were bitter enemies, of the type you might expect in a story about angels and demons, for example. One very flawed, but nonetheless interested in the protection of the innocent, and the other one equally brilliant, but hell-bent on personal gratification and, well, crime.
Hmm.
It was a great loss. Both that
Indeed.
Sherlock has
Indeed.
died, but also that Professor Moriarty used his gifts for the darker things rather than the good of mankind. The two of them together could have done so much.
Which reminds me, you said that we surprised Mr. Holmes, and I remember the last thing. I did not have any interactions with him, but I remember one thing that had a lasting impression that he told me. He always told me that a perfectly predictable future is the past. It has already happened. It is only the true future that is a surprise. Looks like Moriarty surprised him. I'm still curious to see what surprises we had for him. What our
Well,
future holds.
I will say this, Marquesse. Mr. Holmes thought very highly of you. He may not have cottoned up to all of your methods and approaches, but I think he saw that you were dedicated to pretty much the same cause that he was. And, well, I think he might have wished to have gotten to know you perhaps a little bit better, but as you said, it would have probably simply devolved into more fisticuffs. So perhaps better that it did not, but he did hold you in very high regard. I can tell you that much. Regardless of that whole affair.
Well, thank you for the update. My condolences again.
Thank you. Very kind. I believe we are here. How is your little canine friend sort of reacting through all this? Is he yipping, yapping? Is he following quietly?
He is following is a loose term. He's very easily distracted when I'm not with him, so he's kind of wandering around. He's probably biting toward the horse's ankles. He gets distracted by a cat that he sees in the street. He's a little bit chaotic whenever I'm not with him.
Well, as you approach, you will see that he's kind of run off and is not around when the thing, but that doesn't worry you too much. He's very self-reliant. The vehicle will pull up, and in moments, like almost too fast, like it's almost supernatural, York is at the door, opening the door and extending his hand to Ms. Durant to help her down. Ms. Durant, if you would.
Thank you. She'll accept.
He'll help you down. Marquesse, we have arrived. And he'll help down anybody else who needs it. And he kind of seems to know if you need help or not, so it's never awkward. He's a very efficient man, York is. Shall I wait here, sir, or accompany you inside?
Oh, please watch the carriage. We may not be long.
Very well. I do believe I've started forming a bond with the canine. I will perhaps wait for his return and play some fetch with him. If that would be okay, sir. May I be allowed a few minutes of personal enjoyment?
Of course, go crazy.
Thank you. Very kind, sir. And he bows.
I will pull out a scrap of bread and hand it to York as I pass to give to Clever.
Oh, thank you very much. Puts in his little pocket. The lot of you have arrived at a very nondescript building. It looks like any other, Gothic government building in London. There's columns in the front, and it's got that sort of look to it. But there's no plaques. There's no signs of what this place is. It's very, like I said, it could be a bank, it could be a government office, it could be almost anything. You will be led to down the side a little bit and around the back, and there's a single door there with a little light sort of hanging over it. Have any of you ever met Inspector Lestrade?
Can't say I've had the pleasure.
Oh, he's a very good man also. Has been with us on several adventures, and well, while he can oftentimes perhaps appear to be floundering and sort of put on airs that he's kind of lost and doesn't know exactly what's going on, he's usually pretty sharp and knows what we've got going on. So I think you'll find him an agreeable young man. He knocks on the door, and as he does so, the door opens, and you can see a very young man there, who, in fact, appears very feminine, wearing top hat, a jacket like the detectives sort of commonly wear, and a nice little vest, and he's got a watch, and he clicks it. You're late, Watson. I'm sorry, Inspector Lestrade. We were simply gathering our troops. Please allow me to introduce, and he'll go through and sort of introduce everyone. And Inspector Lestrade will bow. All right. We're wasting time. Come on. And sort of turns around and leads you inside. When you walk inside, Watson will say, Lestrade is very business-minded. He doesn't have much time for frivolities or manners or fun or humor or any of those things that we take for granted. He got along famously with Sherlock Holmes because of this. They will guide you down a little corridor, and as soon as you walk in, the smell of disinfectants and all sorts of other strong, astringent aromas sort of hit your nose. It's very dark. The floor appears to be kind of wet a little bit. You pass a few rooms that doors are closed, and one of them says like infirmary, another one says operating theater 1, operating theater 2 kind of thing. Another one says cold room. And eventually there's one door that's kind of ajar, and there's a bit of light that's coming out of it. Dr. Ellis, you have been finalizing the preparation, to show these random people who are coming here. You're not too sure exactly why these people have to come here, but you've worked with Lestrade and you know Watson, so you know that they probably have a good reason, I guess, for this. Is there anything you do finally before they sort of come in? Do you want to meet them at the door? What do you want to do? You do hear their footsteps coming down.
Dr. Ellis is a tall and thin man, and he is currently dressed in a lab coat to protect his clothing, and otherwise in dark material that will not absorb bloodstains too clearly. He has covered the body up to the chest, made sure that it has been taken care of as respectfully as possible. And he is facing away from the door, looking over his notes before the others arrive. In particular, he is looking at copies that he has made of the different symbols and sigils that were marked on the body.
Inspector Lestrade will lean into the door and say, Dr. Ellis, are you ready for our guests?
I am, yes. Thank you.
Very well. Hey, Dungeon Mr. Ty, thank you for dropping in. Appreciate you very much. Come in to watch our little foray into Gothic London here. He opens the door. Lestrade opens the door, and a lot of you walk into this room. Very clean, very everything sort of where it's supposed to be. That scent is very strong in here. The scent of formaldehyde and all those things that you would imagine to find in here. The body that is lying on the slab in front of you is, you said, up to where? You said the covering?
Yep, up to about here,
All right.
like collarbone.
The figure that you see lying there, the first thing you notice is that it's appears to be a male figure, perhaps in the mid 30s, the late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s. So it's kind of hard to tell. Very good looking, very handsome by almost any yardstick you would try to measure. Short, dark hair that has been combed back now. You do notice that around the eyes are little red pinpricks around the eyes, and perhaps you would see on the shoulders, I'm assuming he's on his back, and a little bit on the chest and the face, you would see strange markings that have been etched into the skin of the victim here. Watson says, please come in. This is Dr. Ellis, the chief medical examiner. And he introduces everybody else after that. These kind people have agreed to come and lend their expertise. As I was saying, Inspector Lestrade earlier, all of these people were, I would say, flagged by Sherlock as being people of possessing of interesting skills that I feel perhaps might be useful in this particular situation. That's very well, very well. Well, let's see if they have any sort of expertise that can help us, because right now I don't even know where to begin with this thing. Perhaps, Dr. Ellis, perhaps then you might wish to begin, as you're the one who is most intimately knowledgeable about the case at hand.
Of course, and Lestrade, I am sure you meant no disrespect, but I would not refer to this poor person as a thing, though it is an unusual case.
You're right. My apologies, Doctor.
Dr. Ellis has not made eye contact with a single one of you. He is holding his notes in his hand. He did glance up enough to register somewhat who each of you are, but nothing more than that. And he walks around the body, looks down at it, and says, well, the victim is ostensibly male, but has no sexual organs. Otherwise, outside of the wounds that are on the body, no indications of poor health. In fact, health could not have been better. There's no blemishes on the skin. That is not the strange part, though, nor are the markings on them, nor is the fact that their eyeballs were removed. The stranger part of that is that there's no sign of an ocular nerve. I have no idea what that means as a medical provider. It should not be possible, but it is the case. Part that is strange are the wounds on the back. And he very carefully rolls the body onto the side and then pulls the covering down.
The best way to describe what you see at this particular moment, there are protuberances, 2 of them, equally distant over where the shoulder blades would have been. At first, you're not quite sure what you're seeing. It looks almost like truncated ham, but you eventually see bits and pieces of feather that are sort of sticking around there, and it looks like some limb that had been, or 2 of these, that had been on this victim's back that were sliced off very, very carefully and very, surgically, really, even. Through it, you can see where there was bone and cartilage. You can see where there was the veins and so on and so forth. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like wings have been severed off the back of this victim.
The lack of genitals, was it a surgical removal, or there's just no evidence of ever having had any?
No evidence that they ever had any.
She's like rather unconsciously taken out her notebook and her pen and has just been writing everything down.
I trust you can now see why I said this was a very peculiar matter. Dr. Ellis is a gifted surgeon, a man of considerable experience, and he doesn't really have more answers than any of us do, aside from
Does the body have a belly button?
It does not.
I am a man of science.
Well, doctor, as a man of science, what would you determine as the cause of death?
Blood loss from the removal of
Growths?
growths, yes.
Lestrade chimes in. The body was found last night. It had been dead for a few hours. It was hidden in a porte cochere off of Paradise Alley in the Limehouse district. It was some local residents who found the victim and alerted local constabulary.
Was the victim killed there, or does it appear that the body was simply left there?
No, it appears there was some sort of altercation at that location. There was no indication of exactly how this had been done. It could not have been done easily. It could not have been done without, I would assume, the victim crying out in pain. Yet, plenty of passerbys, plenty of people in the shops nearby, and no one really heard anything more than you would expect to find in a back alley in Limehouse at that time of night.
Well, I mean, I do have an answer for that. The victim was drugged with Dwale.
Drugged with what?
Dwale. It is a substance that will allow you, supposedly, to do any surgical procedures one might need to do. And so I would imagine that is why attention was not drawn.
I'm sorry, I've never heard of this Dwale. Is this something that is readily available, Doctor?
It is not. Its existence is at times debatable. I have heard of how to make it. I have never made it myself. Though, if one had the ingredients, apparently one could make it, because those were the substances that I found.
Are there many who would know how to make this?
I do not believe so, nor do I think there are many with the surgical prowess to do this. The blade was not well suited for the task. It was rough, crude, serrated. And to do all of that in a back alley without drawing attention to oneself, make cuts this clean, we are looking at someone with a very specialized set of skills.
In your experience, Doctor, and unlike with Lillian and the Marquesse, similar to Watson, Emrys is staring very, very hard at Dr. Ellis. In your experience, Doctor, How long would something like this take?
In order to complete the surgery, so to speak.
To begin with, and then perhaps the markings and all of it, I suppose.
I would imagine this would have taken 45 minutes to an hour between subduing the victim and what was done and the marks that were made post-mortem. That would not have been an easy process.
Speaking of the marks, I also would like to point out to Dr. Ellis that they were certainly not made with the same kind of tool that was used to cut off the appendages. I also want to point out to Lillian that since the body's been uncovered and moved, you see a great many more of these symbols throughout the entire body. Like the body is basically covered entirely with them.
Do I recognize these symbols?
Well, so let's perhaps do a little bit of investigating since this is what the game is all about. So I would say to all of you, the good doctor has made a very thorough job here of examining a lot, but you can, they will let you have a look at the body if you want, any and all of you. So you can tell me which part you would like to focus on, what you would like to look at, and perhaps tell me what skill you would like to use. And we will take it from there and see if you can. Your personal expertise allows you to glean certain things that perhaps the doctor simply would not have been aware of.
I'd like to use my seraphic talent to see if I can understand these symbols, or at least what they mean. That's an empathy plus inspiration.
So go ahead and make the roll and just keep it on the side for now. I'll see what everybody else wants to do. And what about the Marquesse and Emrys?
I am not sure if this would be allowed, but I would like to use my magic skill to try and see if there are any remnants of magic lingering. I don't know if that is possible.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Okay. So you can make your roll. So in the case of magic, you would roll, in your case, what did I say? I think it was empathy I talked about. Hold on. You would roll your your empathy and your magic. And the Marquesse.
He is very intrigued by the body, and he will take out his goggles and kind of place them on his head. And then he's going to go into his pouch to see if there's any kind of like attachment he can bring to them, to look at the markings some more, look at the nails, look at the teeth, see if he can decipher anything.
All right, so you're using your pouch, your talent?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Can you tell us what that does?
Since he is a lover of gadget and tools, he kind of creates a lot of different inventions, and he always kind of tinkers with things, with different lenses, different scales, different gears, and he likes to carry with him some sort of a pouch, which usually has a tool, if he's lucky and he's thought ahead, that might match a particular situation. So he's going to reach in to see if he's got anything that may work in this kind of situation and attach it to his goggle or his spectacle and see.
Let's go ahead and make a logic plus technophile roll. So a reminder to our friends, we're using the Vaesen system, which means that you're looking for sixes. You roll a number of dice equal to your skill and your attribute, and you're looking for sixes. One success, 1 6 is a success. You're good enough to go. But if you have more, you can get critical success. I would also like to point that Vaesen has a very interesting rule called pushing, which if you fail all your rolls, if you fail your roll complete, or you would like to try and get more successes, you can re-roll all your failures. You do take a condition as it strains you, but you can attempt by pushing to get more successes. I would also like to indicate that each of you have one advantage. We always get one advantage every game that allows you to add 2 dice to any roll that you want for that session. So that's in your pocket if you want.
And we roll our skill and our attribute,
Yes.
add them together, and that's how many dice?
Yep, exactly. Until I heard add them together and then somebody dies, and I was like, well, you know. So while you're dealing with that, Lillian, you bend yourself to the task and start taking a look at the various symbols. What did you get on your roll?
Got 2 successes.
That's quite excellent. Taking a look at the symbols, first off, you find that they are in Enochian, which is a language that is ascribed to angels. These seem to be most similar to the angelic script as it was described by Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa in the 16th century in his Of Occult Philosophy tome, rather than the more recent Enochian language of Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly. So it is an older form, one of the first forms that had been postulated as being angelic language. You find that the ones carved into the body before death, and Dr. Ellis can point these out to you, seem to be an invocation of sorts. Symbols meant to alleviate pain, remove illusions, draw power from the victims. They're kind of like a mix of, different things, like different strands of angelic magic that had been woven together or something like that to get various effects. The ones that were carved post-mortem seem to be last rites, recommending the soul back to heaven. I will save Kian for last. We will move, and that's never a good thing. We will move to the Marquesse. What did you get?
What was the challenge? Like, how do I
You're looking for a 6.
difficulty? Oh, I got 2.
2 6s. Excellent. You do find, in fact, some tool or other in your pouch, the special lens that allows you to really kind of get in there and take a good look at things. I will say that you are, after a little examination of the body, you are quite convinced that what was used to remove the eyes was a machine of some sort. It wasn't done freehand. You are pretty convinced that the machine was secured to the face by something that had 6 claws or something, and that it would have been affixed to the face that way. And that is what those 6 little holes around the eye would have been. The excision is way too precise to have been done by hand. There is literally no hesitation, no false cuts. The eyelid has been neatly removed as if it was just sort of taken off. And there's no damage at all to the bone, which you would imagine anything going in there and scraping would have caused damage. But there's the occipital bone and the inside of, and that's the thing. The thing Dr. Ellis said, it is just pure bone in there. There's nowhere for an optical nerve to go. I will also say, since you got a little bit of an extra success there, that you have no clue what made the symbols, but they don't appear to have been carved. They appear to have erupted from the flesh, perhaps, rather than have been incised into the flesh. I would like to remind also my players that I always make it a point to put all the clues in the spreadsheet. So I might not do it right now during the game, but certainly at some point I will do that. So even if your notes are incomplete or not too sure, everything will go there. So don't worry too much about that. As all this is going on, Emrys, you sort of reach out with that extra sense you have that oftentimes allows you to pick up things that others failed to notice, or to sense things that exist beyond perhaps the pale of what we know and can see in the mortal world. As you're opening up your senses, you realize that ever since you came in here, there's a little bit of a sound that was in the back of your mind. You took it for maybe some echo from somewhere down here. Maybe they were on another floor. There were people walking around, working, talking. It didn't really stand out, but now that you're opening yourself, it kind of amplifies, and you realize that it's a little bit of a chant that is going on. I will tell the rest of the players what you see in a moment here. But Emrys, you find yourself suddenly, and I will say this has probably happened to you before. You find images flashing in your mind. You see, it's kind of like shattered images, as if you're like, there's a mosaic of different impressions, and they're not just visual, they're also sound and smell and almost tactile in some ways. You see very quickly, in a quick succession, blood splattering on cobblestones. You see a blade cutting through some sort of flesh. You see feathers. You see a alley. You see red wings being spread out throughout your vision. You hear this chanting that grows in strength, and it sounds like a dozen different voices all speaking at the same time. And it's kind of like a dozen different people, men, women, different accents, talking at the same time, kind of under their breath, like someone muttering as they work. Kind of like maybe doing a chant to focus themselves or kind of center themselves as they work. Out of all these disparate noise, they eventually start to coalesce, and you realize all the voices are saying the same thing. They were just kind of a couple of moments or beats behind each other, so that it was just a cacophony at first. But as it starts to coalesce into a single line, you hear Latin. I don't know if your character speaks Latin. We'll figure it out. But you hear the line, qui videre non ponsunt condemnari non ponsunt. And then suddenly, everything is quiet. It's just darkness. You hear and then, oh, I can see you. The rest of you are busy kind of working on the body, investigating things. At some point, you hear Dr. Watson go, Emrys, are you okay? Are you okay, dear boy? And Lestrade looks up and goes, what's wrong with him? And then as some of you sort of look up and sort of see, you can see that Emrys has been kind of stumbling around, but is now spinning very slowly on himself, just sort of spinning around. And you can hear this gradually increasing sound from the mouth, and it sounds like a dozen voices sort of speaking through, and there's all these different sounds and noises that sort of come out of it. He spins around. Watson sort of tries to approach him and put a hand on him, and he just kind of gets batted away. You see, like, anything that's kind of loose in the room starts to sort of fly around. The lights are starting to sort of shake and darken and sort of move around. The body on the table is moving. I will say, Lillian, as you're kind of watching this, you can see the various symbols carved into the body seem to glow from inside, almost as if like a last bit of energy or light is sort of being drawn from them. in this room. The rest of you, this is super freaky. Like, this is something that would be in the Exorcist or something. There's these strange voices coming out of Emrys. His eyes are totally rolled back in his head. He's just spinning around. Everyone who kind of tries to approach him just kind of gets sort of bad, and all of a sudden it kind of stops, and he just sort of hangs there, kind of like, a puppet that's just sort of at rest. And then he looks up at all of you, and then, like a puppet whose strings have been cut, just sort of crumbles to the ground. What do you do?
I would like to go check on Emrys.
You hurry to the boy's side. You do a quick check. The pulse is slowing down. It was through the roof. It's slowing down, covered in sweat. Emrys, you don't really know how you got there, but you kind of open your eyes. You feel very stiff all over, literally as if you'd been stretched on a rack, and at the same time kind of compressed into a small box. Like, everything kind of aches and just sort of hurts. You can feel it. You're kind of drenched in sweat. Your mouth is dry. You're super thirsty. Like, all you want is a drink of water. And the only thing that you get, all these images are slowly kind of fading, but those words that you heard are sort of sticking with you. But you open your eyes and you see Dr. Ellis sort of over everyone is kind of crowding in, and Watts is like, give the boy some space, give the boy some space, and Dr. Ellis is over you.
Is there water? Water, please.
Of course. And without looking at anyone, probably ends up gesturing towards the Marquesse and says, could you grab the boy some water?
Of course. Oh, that's wine. So, hold on. Here you go. Water.
Wine will do as well. And Emrys takes a very, very deep gulp of water. And Bleak, a clarification, when you said that the words are lingering, is it both the words in English and in Latin, or one or the other?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't know. You don't. Let's see if you know Latin. Okay. Let's do a quick. Would your character know Latin? Tell me.
Not enough to translate that.
Okay, but you remember it, phonetically really well, and you, of course, have heard the other words also.
Well, I suppose the secret's out of the bag of why Holmes was looking into me. I'm going to finally look toward Lillian, and Lillian would see that Emrys kind of makes eye contact and has a hard time holding it. Do you know Latin? You're a writer. I don't know if that's a thing that writers would know.
I would imagine, given her studies in Enochian, there would have been some Latin research.
For sure. I would say you certainly would speak it. I would say Dr. Ellis certainly would speak some of it. I will let the Marquesse decide, but certainly the benefit of, a higher education. So I'll let the Marquesse decide if the Marquesse has Latin or not, but the other two would.
I would think in some schooling, he does have a 2 in learning that maybe he has come across basic Latin. I think he would know a little.
And I will say, now that we are in the surgical light of this room, you all would see that, especially as frazzled as Emrys is, the clothes are very patchworked. These are not well kept. This is not somebody who probably should be even standing near most of you. And that was pretty well hidden in the dark and in the mist and the fog, but there is no hiding it in this surgical light. But I will repeat the phrase in the hopes that somebody else can translate it. Kian knows no Latin, so I was not even able to write it down, but Emrys would know.
You do repeat him, and yes, other people do know. And what the line is those who cannot see cannot condemn.
Would I know if that's quoting something in particular? I can make a roll for it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't spring to mind of it being anything specific.
Those who do not see cannot condemn. Interesting, with the lack of occipital nerve and the removal of the eyes. And
Yes,
you,
taken very literally.
yes, crudely so. Mr. Emrys, does this happen to you frequently?
More than once.
But never like with
Not
this sort of intensity of like lingering things. Usually it's just like a surface, a brief, and you've certainly never passed out.
not to this degree. Ever.
Do you have... And you can tell Dr. Ellis is like grasping for something somewhat normal in all of this as he asks, do you have epilepsy?
I don't think so, Doctor. I would not guess that that's what this is. They are... Well, there is a being on the table who seems to have wings growing out of their back, so I can say that they are visions.
I see.
I saw blood on cobblestones and feathers, and I heard voices chanting this phrase.
Multiple voices.
It seemed, and then it kind of came together as one. Like I said, it's never been this much before, so...
Well, of note, the symbols are Enochian. The symbols are the ones carved pre-mortem were a removal of pain, a removal of illusions, and an absorption of power. And the post-mortem were essentially last rites committing the soul to heaven. So this was a ritual of some sort. I've not seen this before, but my assumption on why I was brought here is seeming to pan out.
I have something else for you, Mr. Durant.
Oh?
Sherlock found... I'm sorry, you wouldn't have said Sherlock found. I'm sorry, I'll tell you about. In the wake of Sherlock and Professor Moriarty's death, I had the opportunity to visit Moriarty's cabinet, and I came away with several interesting tidbits. One of which I believe may in some way, shape, or form be tied to what's here at hand. Are you familiar with Dr. John Dee's The Tongue of Angels book?
I am. I've studied that book.
Well, perhaps you can tell me then if this apparently missing chapter that Professor Moriarty had is real or not. And he hands you a rolled up bunch of pages.
Would I be able to tell if it was?
You'll look through it. It looks real enough. It's certainly written in the same style and the same way. It's written in Latin. When you peruse through it, I mean, if it's a fake, it's a pretty good one. When you peruse it, you start to read. There's little bits of parts missing here and here, but it seems to be talking about some sort of time of strife when the murder of a number of angels would awaken a dark angel. It says that when the devil's influence has spread enough through the world, when the world has become a place of acrid smoke and choking filth and rotting morality, that demons will begin to appear on earth, finding the doorway easy to open through greed and sin of humanity, and at which point one will rise, one who will, quote, wear the dark mantle of sin, end quote, and spread, quote, Satan's lust and destruction upon the world, and even the meek shall perish in the flames of perdition. At the end, you can read the following lines. And lo, a time of strife shall visit the land. Beneath acrid skies and smoke-filled heavens, the blood of 7 of God's chosen to be spilled. And thus the broad wings of sin, death and hell, from the dark angel shall to this world be gifted.
She will share that passage and then follow up with saying, if this is a copy, it is an excellent one. This seems to be correct with regards to Dee's writings. Of note, the formation of the Enochian on the corpse was not of Dee's studies or Kelly's. It goes further back to Agrippa's early work, several centuries before they did it. But if this passage is an influence on whoever did it, then there are going to be 6 more bodies.
6 more bodies of angels.
That's what this person seems to be in belief of.
We're not really believing that, though, are we, says Lestrade.
I'm merely forming a hypotenuse on what the perpetrator may be believing. Been a number of strange sights here tonight.
Yes, I think perhaps we've all been under quite a lot of emotion. Perhaps we might repair to more hospitable environments to further discuss. May I assume that the 3 of you are willing to help us out with this particular case?
Absolutely.
I was never good with controlling my curiosity, so I suppose for now I am in. Marquesse?
Such an investigation like this will take a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of contacts. I'm in. I have some debts I need to repay, and I think this may be the best way to do it.
And what about you, my dear Emrys? Will you be coming with us?
Of course.
Very well. The biggest surprise I had when Holmes died was that apparently upon her death, our old landlady had left him our old apartments, and, well, my surprise was to find that upon his death he had bequeathed it to me. Perhaps we might repair to 227B Baker Street and discuss this matter further.
It would be an honor.
Lestrade will say, here are the things we found on the body, and he will give you a little bag with some things. He'll give you a piece of paper. I've written here the address where the body was found. Could I get, we're going to go on break here in just a second. Could I get Lillian and Dr. Ellis? Dr. Ellis, if you would make me a learning check, and Lillian, if you would make me an occult roll, please.
Ooh, okay. It's 2 again.
Yep, 2.
Hey.
Another thing that would sort of just stare out at you now while we're thinking about it is that both of you, for different reasons, would figure that probably the best place in town to find the type of ingredients needed to make a dwell. No, what was it called?
Dwell.
Yeah, would be Mr. Fancy's Curiosities, a small occult shop that you know of. So both of you will kind of come to that knowledge. It's something you can share with the rest of your group a little later. I would like now, however, to go on break because it is getting there. So thanks so much. I hope that everyone's having a good time. Thank you, TCAT, for the bits, and thank you, Kurt, you absolute man, for all those gifted subs. Kurt is a fantastic GM. I'm playing in a vampire game with Kurt right now, and he is absolutely killing it. Great GM. Thank you so much, Kurt. Appreciate it. We're going to take a short break, about 5 minutes. Don't go away. Hang out. We'll be right back with some more Penny Dreadful. Thank you so much for hanging out. We appreciate you. See you in a few minutes. Quick recap. In the first half, a group of strangers were brought together by Dr. Watson to investigate a rather strange crime, which they eventually found out appears to have been the murder of an angel. The victim they were able to investigate appeared to have their wings severed from their body and a bunch of markings on their bodies that one of the characters, who is an expert in Enochian magic, recognized as different ritual symbols of Enochian magic. After that, one of the group members, the young vagabond Emrys, seemed to have been not possessed, but certainly I've taken on a bit of a fugue state, and I've seen a few strange things. And these included the words, "Those who cannot see cannot condemn," which went well with the fact that the body had lost its eyes, and then another voice that, on the other hand, suggested that they could see Emrys. So that's never good. That's never good. That's just never good. Nothing ends well that starts with some strange voice in your head telling you they can see you. Having sort of gotten back from their emotions, having picked up a bunch of other clues, you go with Watson. So Lestrade says he has some things to do and will remain available. And Dr. Ellis has opted to join your little group, and you are basically traveled. You have traveled to 221B Baker Street, which was left to Watson by Sherlock in his last will and testament. Watson will say that you'll give you the key. We'll give the key to Dr. Ellis, and we'll say that you are free to use this if you want as sort of your base of operations while you investigate this situation. No one will bother you here. There's no more, unfortunately, a landlady. You'll have to get your own tea, but other than that, the place is in perfect working conditions. It's well situated, so it's a good place to start off from. He will remain available. The way Lestrade and Watson are going to work is you have a Lestrade and a Watson token. Every game you will get a token for each. You can spend that token to get their help somehow. So Lestrade can help get you into places, can help get people investigated or arrested, can provide you with support. You can even, if you're in a tough spot in a fight, you can play your Lestrade token and he shows up with a bunch of his boys in blue right in the nick of time to save your bacon. So you have that in your back pocket. It refreshes every game. Watson can be used to gain information if you're failing some rolls or you're just really stumped and you kind of don't know where to go yet. You can put in a call, not actually a call because there's no phones, but you can play your Watson token and have a brief audience with him and sort of get his take on the situation. Maybe he's got some suggestions, some clues to give you. So every game you have one token for each that you can spend as you want. Okay. You now find yourselves then at 221B Baker Street. I will say that Watson has stayed with you for the next little while in case you have some questions. He has sitting down in a chair and is massaging his leg. Someone has made some tea. Oh, York has made some tea. I thought it was Clubber, but your dog's name is Clever?
Clever. Yes.
Clever. I thought it was Clubber at first. I was like, that's a killer name. Clever is back. He's there's this big old British flag pillow there, and he's kind of claimed it as his own. And he seemed to be very worried about you at first when you first came out and you saw him. He kind of jumped up and licked, and he seemed to sense that something had happened to you. But he and York seem to have become friends also. And now York is in the kitchen making tea and some butter toast, whatever that you may want. You have some maps that you will find in the Excel spreadsheet. There's a map of the area where the body was found, which is in Limehouse, which is basically where Chinatown is. Paradise Alley is a small dead-end alley on the other side of where most of the opium dens are. So you have a Limehouse map, and you have a general map of London. I will see about putting them up here on screen in a second. I do want to go over a couple of things we didn't talk about, just sort of very briefly. Amongst the things that were found that Lestrade gives you before you leave were as soon as I find them, I will tell you. As soon as I find them. In his pockets, the victim. In his pockets were found opium smoking paraphernalia. So his clothes were found near the opium smoking paraphernalia. There's a little bit of money, some coins. There was a pocket watch chain that was found in his hand. The chain had been broken. The way it was in the hands and the wounds suggested to Dr. Ellis that he might have pulled this off of his assailant, but had been left with just a chain. Of note on the body, on the clothes, was coal dust. You now have all of this information. You are having some tea, some toast perhaps, or some crumpets. And if we look at the map here, the area here is Limehouse. This is around where the body was found. Okay, you are currently here. This is Regent's Park, where you met up. The chief medical examiner's office was around here somewhere. And Baker Street is right over here. So you are currently here. The Limehouse, as I said, the area where the body was found is around here. I have a better map for that. So the body was found in one of the back alleys around here. Near the docks. So you find yourselves (227B) Baker Street. You have the maps. You have the clues. You have all these items. What would you like to do?
Emrys is slouched in a chair very heavily, still shaken, and kind of brushes their hair back. And when he does, you would be able to see that he's kind of got what look to be knife wounds kind of tracing around his face. Not in any particular pattern. You just wouldn't have noticed them before. And he will ask Watson, are there any leads on missing persons, who this might have been before they were carved up and left in an alley?
It's an unfortunate fact of life in London that people go missing all the time. The sheer number of runaways, people missing, the murders is, well, disheartening at times. This one has not yet made any waves as far as the Strahd can tell. There was no particular missing persons report filed about him. No one in the area seemed to know him. Some of the people the Strahd questioned would have said that they had seen him occasionally indulging in one of the opium dens in the area, but no one really knew who he was or had spoken to him ever. He was very quiet and kept to himself. No one even knew where he lived, and there were no identifying marks or papers at all amongst, well, the victims' things.
A question. Since we have the victim's clothing, was there anything built in to hide the wings from sight?
Nope. And there was zero indication. The garments weren't loose. There's no holes. You really get the sense that the wings were not a day-to-day issue. When this is brought up and when you talk about that, one of the things that Lillian will remember is that some of the runes that were left on the body were to remove illusions.
And I think when Ellis points that out, Lillian, who's been kind of pensively quiet, and she's just been kind of pacing by the window and just like rubbing this gold locket around her neck, she just says, I think that would have to do with some of the pre-mortem writings. There was one about dispelling illusions. It could be what caused the wings to emerge.
So what you're saying is that there are angels walking amongst us in plain sight with illusions, so they look like normal people.
That defy the laws of physics because the wings are technically still there, but not to the point that it would disrupt clothing.
Well, investigating the carvings, it looked like it was kind of erupted, came from the inside. Perhaps the wings are able to actually go into the body, and then perhaps an incantation makes them sprout. Who knows? I mean, you should probably just look for like a circus freak, see if there's a circus in town. This could be a half man, half chicken. Who knows?
I get the sense, Marquesse, that this is not you're not quite believing what's been placed in front of us, are you?
I'm gonna need a little bit more evidence. I'd be more likely to believe in demons than angels in this town. If there were actual angels, I'd have a lot of questions for them.
An angel smoking opium.
We all have our faults.
It does not necessarily have to be an angel come down from heaven, you know. There are studies that sometimes go hand in hand with Enochian that references the Nephilim, the children of fallen angels and humans, that one reading of the Bible would be why there was the flood, to drown out these for lack of a more appropriate term, unsanctioned children. If you're willing to entertain the idea of that sort of religious mythology, that could be an explanation as to why the wings would need a ritual incantation to emerge. It could be something on that regards, but these are just suppositions. Perhaps it is something as simple as someone believing they are angels and finding people with growths in their backs that they believe are unsprouted wings or something like that. And it just, we don't have all the pieces yet.
Well, the Marquesse will just be kind of lurking over the maps, just taking some wine and like trying to go through evidence, make sure that the curtains are closed, pouring himself a little glass of wine, and just kind of getting ready for the next course. What time of day is it?
By now it would be like around 9 o'clock at night, perhaps. York has taken your jacket and your boots and is busy, getting the dust off and giving the boots a nice good brushing in the corner. Just making sure that everything's fine. He's darning a little bit of on the cuff here, was getting a little frayed. So he's like, but yeah, it's about 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
The coal on the clothes, I'm sure we could potentially narrow that down to jobs that would be in close proximity to coal. I don't know if they use more than children for chimney sweeps these days, but someone transporting coal, someone working at the rail station.
Watson will pipe in. Lestrade did mention that in the alley where the victim was found, there is a coal vendor whose cart was apparently upset while he was otherwise engaged in the time leading up to the situation. I believe that it's possible that the coal would probably have come from there, perhaps if there was an altercation of some sort.
Well, then that takes care of that theory.
I guess we'll have to check out the opium den.
I would not make that our first stop.
Well, surely the alley wouldn't hurt.
Precisely.
And then if the opium den is near the alley, that's a 2 birds, 1 stone situation. Though I imagine those places are rather known for privacy.
Would anyone like to check the paraphernalia, the opium smoking paraphernalia? Does anyone think they have any sort of knowledge that might help in investigating?
I don't think Lillian would. We would have any knowledge about opium use.
Maybe.
I think the Marquesse kind of would know a little bit himself.
I'm sure Henry's is just from studying.
It's so from studying, never from
field research.
It's all intellectual.
Field research.
It's all intellectual.
Of course.
Go ahead and roll investigations. Anyone who wishes to take a look at the paraphernalia.
That is 2.
Just 1.
Okay. Well, I would say that both of you would be able to gather the fact that this equipment had not been in use very long. It had definitely been used, but it's not something that someone's been using for like a full year or anything like that. So it's fairly recent. There is a little bit of opium in it. You can definitely tell that it was used recently. So especially Dr. Ellis, I would think. So both of you would kind of know that it hasn't been used a lot or for very long. Dr. Ellis, with your extra success, you would be able to tell that it was probably used not too long before what occurred.
Anything interesting over there, Henry? And I am rifling for a drink as I am saying this.
Do you consider opium pipes interesting?
Well, I mean, is this pipe unique in any way? Like, is this something that you can get at a normal opium den, like for first
Yeah,
timers?
it doesn't have anything about it that sort of strikes you as, uh, you get the feeling that it's probably not secondhand, like it's probably new, like someone bought it and there's nothing about it.
It's like the tourist version. I Love London. Like you
Yeah,
just get it at the
exactly.
swag shop. Okay.
Yeah, and the Emrys, you find an old bottle of sherry that has kind of been secreted away in the kitchen.
I'm taking a swig from the bottle and bringing it back to sit with me.
Look, it's not the best, but you've had worse. Oh, is that where that went? Huh.
I hope you don't mind.
Oh no, please. It's got to be properly aged by now.
Well,
it's getting nighttime. I guess it's the perfect time to go rummaging about alleyways.
Before we take any adventures, you all know why I am here. We know why the good writer, what she is contributing to this conversation, and probably what caught Mr. Holmes' eye. What about the two Henrys? What might have interested Holmes in either of you?
Marquesse will look over to the doctor. Yes, doctor, why don't you tell us? By the way, haven't we met before? Your face looks very, very familiar.
I suppose, though, London is not a particularly large city. Our paths may have crossed. I haven't been here all that long. Just the past 5 months or so. As for what interest Holmes would have in me, to my knowledge, he had none. I am simply here as the medical examiner, with all of you having your expertise, though I am curious what exact expertise you bring, Marquesse. You have some interesting toys and gadgets.
Yes, I think that Holmes's, I guess his intrigue with me happened a couple of years ago. We ran into each other. We were in the same place, fortunate or unfortunately, running with this particular group that he walked in very, very abrupt, and we were talking about him for several days after until he met up with us again. And I was going through a particular, let's say, low time of my life. I was really, really heavy into the drink, even more so than now. And it was there where he pushed me. He ventured me to have a wager, and he wagered that I would be able to kind of play in the darkness a little bit more. He knew I had a very inquiring mind, and he knew I like creating inventions. And so I only ran into him 2 or 3 times, but every time he still said he had a wager on me. That he said that there was some kind of light still inside, and I wasn't going to be completely this libertine of drugs and alcohol and wealth, and that there was a mind inside this alcohol-fueled body. Said he was wrong, and then after he beat me at chess, then he never came back. So I think it's probably the inventions and the resources. So I've done a little detective work from time to time, and perhaps sometimes while you are in an alcohol-fueled enlightenment, some answers will arrive. So let's hope all that is true.
But nothing else supernatural amongst this group. I'm the only one who sees things or hears things or anything of the like.
I've had no supernatural experiences myself, but I suppose my field of study rather errs on the side of the supernatural. In most academic circles tend to look down on it as a very fantastical, made-up field.
Well, lucky me then to be amongst such ordinary individuals. And you would see that Emrys is kind of worrying at something in their pocket with the hand that is not holding the bottle of sherry. Has everybody taken off their coats, or is it just the Marquesse?
Lillian would have taken off her coat.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that Dr. Ellis would have as well.
I have mine on only because I have very few possessions, and this coat is one of them. So I would not have taken it off. But I am glancing at where the other coats are and seeing if I can sneak my hand into a pocket to see if any of those dossiers are still sitting in there.
Aha!
I would like to do this as at whatever most opportune time I think that there is, and
The game is afoot.
I think that I would go for.
It would be a stealth roll.
Okay. I'm going to try for Lillian's first.
Okay.
I think that is who.
No. Now,
Why did you say no?
I will say this, right? So you'll roll your precision and your stealth, but you have a talent. That's called tricks.
Yes, where I gain +2 stealth when I'm trying to hide myself or an object from a wealthy human. And
with the Marquesse right there.
I was going to say, if Lillian doesn't qualify as like the wealthy technicality within the mechanics of the game, then I would go for the Marquesse.
I'm pretty sure the Marquesse is above Lillian wealth status. She does not have a title.
And I'm so sorry, Bleak. You said, which am I rolling?
Your precision and your stealth, and you get an extra +2. And I'll remind you, you also have an advantage, right? You have a +2 dice that you can add.
Do I need to declare that advantage before I roll?
I am a big fan of that, yes. Oop, someone's gone. The Marquesse is like, you're pilfering my clothes, I'm out of here.
The Marquesse had to hide his coat.
I haven't gotten any texts about the grid failing, so hopefully
it'll be back. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll stay with this weird situation we got now.
I'm not going to use my advantage right now.
Okay.
3, 4, 5. So I get 7 dice for this. If I don't get a 6, I'm going to be really disappointed in myself.
So you're trying to reach for the Marquesse's. So the thing about the Marquesse is I did say that his bagman, York, was cleaning his clothes and so on and so forth. All right. So I will say that he's brought it back and put it on the back of a chair. And gone back into the room to make some tea or something. I.e., you would have waited for an opportunity to do it.
And I will admit that Emrys is probably not as worried about York as they are about the Marquesse.
Okay, the Marquesse has returned.
Welcome back.
So you're going to make an opposed roll, all right? So you're going to roll your precision, your stealth, and your tricks. Marquesse, you are going to roll your vigilance with your logic. I don't know if you have anything else that might help you.
Vigilance and logic.
You have Eagle Eye. What does the Eagle Eye do?
Oh, that's more like for investigating.
Okay. So, go ahead and roll, and whoever gets the most successes.
I got 2 successes out of that.
1 second.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 1 success.
No, 1 second.
Excited.
Party!
2 successes.
Oh.
I will. I don't even really know what. I usually ties. I'm gonna just say it. I'll look it up, but right now I usually give ties to the person initiating the action. So I will give the tie to Emrys in this particular case. I'll look it up, and if I'm wrong with the rule, then we'll change it moving forward. But I that's how I usually tend to go. So I will say that you almost get caught, like you feel it, like you get the feeling that he's a lot more watchful and a lot more on the ball than he kind of seems or pretends to be. And you almost hesitate at one point, and like you kind of commit, and then you're about to pull your hand back, and then you're like, okay, just do it, just do it. You know, you kind of do it, and it just happens that he wasn't about to turn and look at you. He would, or something kind of distracts him, and it was really close, though. It was really close, but you managed to grab it. I will, however, make a roll for York, just because he would certainly be on the lookout for his. Okay. You managed to grab it. Now, would you have anything else in your pockets, Marquesse, in your jacket pocket?
If Emrys, if you were really good at finding pockets, like looking into like maybe inside pockets and just kind of slithers in like a snake and just you will notice in the inside pocket, like going through the coat, that there's another pocket on the left hand side. And as you stick your hand in there, it feels leathery, and with your hand, if you were to take it out, it looks like a small mask, the leather mask that folds out, and it looks like a devil. It looks like it's got like a devil horns, and it's a face mask of a demon.
I will note the mask, but I will leave it in the pocket. I am just taking the dossier.
No problem.
Because it's so close, I think that I would grab it and take it. I don't think that I would stop to read it right then.
Okay.
I'm going to wait for a little bit of a quieter moment, and hope that the Marquesse doesn't look too hard about it being missing.
No problem. What else would you like to do? Is there anything else you'd like to do at this point, or you?
I will just say I like to imagine that what distracted the Marquesse was Dr. Ellis asking him about different strains of opium, and if he could identify any elements of the drugs remaining in the paraphernalia.
Oh, that's very interesting. You would need some sort of alchemical components or tools or some sort of chemistry set or something like that. But
Would
perhaps
there still be one in Holmes's old apartments?
Well, I would certainly think so. That's such a good idea. In fact, I'm going to give you an extra advantage that you can carry with you into next game, because that was pretty brilliant thought.
Yay.
As you're kind of bringing that up, and the Marquette's like, well, I could if I had the proper tools. Not Holmes, but Watson, who's kind of been dozing off, is like, if you mean a chemistry set, Holmes was quite the home chemistry practitioner. Practically burned us out of home and house several times. I believe you would find some remnants of it, perhaps in the cabinet over there, in the corner. These cabinets, by the way, were made by hand by a carpenter named Gerontis, who
Yes.
incredibly skilled. Very well, in the corner there.
Chemistry set.
You find the remnants of it. There's a lot of esoteric stuff, a lot of weird stuff that's broken, stuff that's burned, stuff that's just like a mess, but you kind of manage to cobble together, enough to sort of get you going if you want. You could the two of you could work together on that if you want, which would give an advantage to whoever wants to make a roll. So I'm going to go ahead and say you need to make a medicine roll. So it'll be precision plus medicine.
I would be happy to make that roll.
I was like, I will let the doctor do the precision medicine. Like, I'm just here if we need somebody to smoke it just for research sake. Like, you test it in the lab, like, okay, well, let's see what happens with the human laboratory. So,
which
is
exactly what Sherlock Holmes would do. Sherlock Holmes would totally smoke it just to see.
Right. We have to test, so
absolutely. But so you'll give an advantage to Dr. Ellis. You can roll 2 extra dice, Dr. Ellis.
Amazing.
I think while they're doing that research, Lillian's going to take a moment to just quickly flip through her dossier. just to see what notes had been written on her while they're distracted.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it in the between the games. I'll tell you all what's in your dossier and then what's in the Marquesse's dossier and all that. Okay.
That was 4 successes.
Wow.
Ooh,
Pretty awesome.
I had 11 dice, so yes.
jeez.
Beyond any doubt, you do in fact realize that some of the residue in the pipe has some of the ingredients from the tincture. When you then pull out the remaining opium and inspect it, you find that it is indeed tainted. This leads you to understand 2 things. One, while he was, a smoker of opium that had smoked before, he wasn't a super knowledgeable about it. In fact, once you pull out the opium and the Marquesse sees it, he knows right away that it's been tampered with. Like it's not the right color, or it doesn't feel right. We need an English teacher here. I don't have my words. It's not the correct. What's the freaking word?
Like
Texture.
consistency?
Yeah, consistency.
Texture?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And wow, you got 4 successes, eh? What else could I tell you about it? There's nothing else really to find about it. I will say that you would be able to, again with the Marquesse's help, know that the opium itself is definitely one that is sold regularly here on the streets, easy to access, easy to get. The Marquesse will venture that very likely this was not someone who bought and carried opium around. He probably just went to a place and bought a stash there and smoked it and then kind of left. Now, the question you were left with at this point is he did have some left on him. What happened? Did he make it out and then was assaulted? Was he taken? Your opinion, and again, you got 4 successes, so here's something I will tell you. You're pretty certain that anyone who would have smoked this would not have woken up. So you're pretty certain that he would have had to have been carried out of wherever he smoked this. Now, did he smoke it in a den or not? And probably could have gone into the alley to smoke. There's no way of, but for certain, you're certain he smoked, and from that moment, he never regained consciousness. I would like to say here that a lot of you kind of putting some of these things together, that some of the runes or symbols that Lillian found seem to indicate a certain amount of compassion. Odd to say from someone who would, do what they did, but you kind of get the feeling that this person did not want the victim to suffer. Even though they were inflicting horrendous wounds to them.
And they were under an opioid coma? I mean, like,
But the extra stuff that was in would have just knocked them out completely. It would have been enhanced by the opium. He would have just been completely out, which is very likely why there was no screaming or anything like that. But on top of that, all the other stuff that kind of would have prevented. So whoever did this seemed to not want the victim to suffer.
Must have encountered him as it was starting to take effect, given that there seemed to be signs of a struggle and he had the watch chain in his hand.
It's not to say that.
True.
Yep. You'll have to see what that's all about.
Perhaps.
I will say, I think Dr. Ellis perhaps has tipped his hand a little bit because, well, he did not initiate the search for a chemistry set. He certainly knew what to do with it.
remarkably. Dr. Ellis, this type of modification of opium, does it itself have a nickname? Is it like, if it's altered in any way going around town, if you had any patients that have had any overdoses of this particular type, is it like have a street nickname for any kind of opioid change or modification?
Have I heard anything like that, Bleak?
I
Or is
I
this
I
the
was
first
typing
time?
something, and I'm terrible at doing two things at once. So could you repeat the
Yep.
question?
The this modification of the opioid, that's
Hmm.
does it have like a street name like cheese or
No, not at all. In
purple
fact,
Urkel or something?
you've never heard of any sort of modification like this. I
Okay.
think Dr. Ellis would be able to tell you that the anesthetic that was used is almost mythical. Like it's not something that's used. It's not something that's used in the hospitals. Usually around this period, they use a solution of cocaine diluted in water for most cases for an anesthetic. This is like, you know, the old granny, the old, granny's recipe book, occult recipe book from whatever. Like this is like not something people do. This is like this would be as dangerous to someone as it would be beneficial. So I think Dr. Ellis would be able to stress that this comes from someone's old grimoire somewhere. That if asked, he would say this probably doesn't work. Like it's, I can actually tell you what the ingredients are because this is actually a real thing.
Oh.
Yeah, I know the things you
I mean,
research. The things
with the doctor's supervision, it may be safe to try. I mean, if I have a doctor right here.
Next episode.
Would you like to see?
Like,
yeah, okay. Well, I'll tell you
like,
what goes in it, and you can tell me if you still want to try it. How to make a drink that men call duale to make a man sleep whilst men cut him. Take 3 spoonfuls of the gall, which is the bile, of a barrow swine, or a boar, for a man, and for a woman of a sow. 3 spoonfuls of hemlock juice. 3 spoonfuls of wild neep, which is brainy. 3 spoonfuls of lettuce for crunch. 3 spoonfuls of opium. 3 spoonfuls of henbane, 3 spoonfuls of vinegar, and mix them all together and boil them a little. Put them in a glass vessel well stopped, and put therefore 3 spoonfuls into a pottle of good wine and mix it well together. That is the original recipe for this.
3 spoons of poison. Yeah,
Yep.
sure, why not?
But, bile from a swine. So I don't know. Do you still want to try it?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say the answer is obviously
yeah, he
yes.
does.
It's
yeah,
like, well, even more
Marquesse
so
totally
now.
would. There's
Like, we'll wait
opium
till
in there.
next episode.
It's
Yeah,
just
it's like-
extra opium. Yeah.
All I heard was
Worst things in
opium.
my mouth.
All I heard was
Worst things in my
opium.
mouth, let's go.
All right. Look, we are nearing our end time here, so I will ask: is there like a final thing you would like to learn or know or ask? And then we'll assume perhaps that you head out to the scene of the crime, and when we come back next week, we will investigate that. Is there any final question you might have, or any clarification you might want? So there's stuff we can clarify also off screen, but you all seem nonplussed.
I think Lillian's ready to see the scene. Oh.
I think Dr. Ellis is ready to see the scene. I will say, I think he is going to take a few moments before he is ready to go, just to step away from everyone and make sure he is well composed before they head out.
Curious,
Is
sir.
this obvious in any way? Or are you being very subtle about stepping away from the group?
I would be open to making a contested roll. You're probably going to win. My manipulation is 0.
So it would be, I would say, an observation against a manipulation roll. So empathy and observation against empathy and manipulation.
Okay. I'm gonna use my
Yep, that's
advantage.
Oops. A big nutta, a big goose egg.
Mhm.
Ooh, I got 1 6.
Yep.
All right. So you
Um,
you do notice that he kind of like, yes, I'll be right along, and does he do anything, Dr. Ellis, specific, or it's just a?
He's just going to step into the washroom and stand and splash some water on his face and take a few deep breaths before he looks at himself in the mirror.
Emrys would say nothing, would not follow, but when that door opens, the first thing that Dr. Ellis would notice is that Emrys is watching the door, just to indicate that he saw him step away. And that's it.
And Marquesse will look over to Mr. York, motion him to come close.
Yeah, please get your jacket.
Like, yes, thank you. Oh, by the way, I need you to take my dossier and put it in my safe back in my manor.
Will do, sir.
Be sure to keep it safe.
I will not leave my sight for 1 second, sir.
Excellent. We go towards the crime scene. I want to make sure that there's no evidence that I was there in case I were to have a hasty retreat. Don't need anything fallen out that has my literal calling card.
Shall I get the bag of goodies, sir?
Yes.
Very well. And on this ominous note, what is a bag of goodies? What could it have, knowing the Marquesse? Could be anything. On this note, we will end here tonight. Our first episode of Strange Death in Paradise. We have 3 more to go, so plenty of time to get into this mystery and find out exactly what's going on, what's happening, why would anyone want to kill angels? You know, the angels, the good people. We'll find out, and how it connects to all these wonderful people. We will find that out next week. But first, I would like to give my friends here the opportunity to tell you who they are, where you can find them, what they got going on, all that good business. We will start with Adrian, the Marquesse in the flesh.
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Adrian. You can find me on the socials at @SlySparrow_. You can find me on Twitter or X, whatever it is, Instagram and Discord. And I'm an actor, producer, director, and I like playing tabletop role-playing games and just creating collaborative stories with people. And very much like this one. And I'm so grateful and happy to join this group. Really enjoying myself and looking forward to the next session. So thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Adrian. Next up, we have Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I've been Lillian tonight. You can find me at sbrownwrites on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can also catch me over at Live from the Apocalypse tomorrow night in JD's psychological horror game Redacted. He's also running a one-shot on Friday of In Extremis. And soon we will be returning with season 2 of A Season of Secrets and Shadows, Monster Hearts Regency flavored game. So we're going to see what those kids are getting up to in London.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised you didn't say Cash Me Outside.
Missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Pleasure to have you with me here again. Next up, we have Kian. Kian, first time here. I hope it wasn't too rough.
It was terrible. We'll
Terrible.
never be coming back. This is the last you're seeing of Emrys.
0 out of 10.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Kian. I am a Filipino non-binary queer TTRPG performer and writer casually. Typically, I'm over on Lost Caravan. I am in a couple of campaigns there. I'm in a campaign on Singularity Roleplay. Best place to figure out where the heck I'm going to be is going to be on Twitter. You can find me at uptight_chiffon. You can find me on Blue Sky at uptight-chiffon because Blue Sky said no underscores, which is really frustrating because I can't rebrand to make a match because Twitter doesn't allow dashes. I have a couple of projects upcoming. Definitely keep an eye out on socials for those. But yes, this was an absolute delight. I am so excited and honored to be at this table. Cannot wait to see where this story goes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ken, for being here with us. Appreciate you taking a chance on us over here. And last but not least, the myth, JD, who is so busy and wearing so many hats and doing so much that he is about to vibrate through time and space.
It's not false. Yes, I am JD. You can find me on social media at JD, not Jason Dean. Incidentally, I'm currently running the social media for Live from the Apocalypse, which means I've been putting lots of bone facts and facts about the Locked Tomb because nobody is stopping me and they gave me way too much power. As Stephanie said, I will be running 4 games in the next week. Over with Live from the Apocalypse, Redacted tomorrow, and Extremis on Friday. And then Tuesday, we will be back for our 2-part Monster of the Week, the Lost/Last broadcast. And then on Friday, we will be returning for a season of Secrets and Shadows. In between all of that, you can also find me for back here next week, as well as in Thy Kingdom Come with Live from the Apocalypse next week. And I will be over with Exquisite Corpse Presents for Sister Cities on Saturday night. Those are the things I'm doing in like the next 9 days. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Look, Stephanie's giving you the stink eye there.
She is in 4 of those games.
Oh,
She
okay.
has no reason to judge me.
I'm usually not, though. I'm usually not. I have a much lighter schedule.
Hey, Insomnia, thanks for joining us for just ending here. Thank you. It's been a great pleasure playing with y'all. We are back next week, same place, same time, for part 2 of Strange Death in Paradise. In the meantime, you can find me right back here on Friday, finishing up the grand finale of my Vampire the Masquerade game with a bunch of awesome people there also. Darling Creepshow, Darling Creepshow, Little Bones, Myriad X, and Mornian. It is the 4th and final part, and it's bound to be full of horrors and all sorts of terrible things like that. Thanks so much, Insomnia, for popping in. Let me give Insomnia a shout out here before I move on with my business. Do check out Insomnia Night RPG's channel, which is, simply put, one of the wackiest, craziest channels I've ever seen. Tons of stuff going on over there. Always a lot of action. Thanks so much, TCAT, for hanging out. Thank you so much, Kurt, for hanging out, for all the gifted subs and all that. I super appreciate all of you. I myself, of course, am Bleakseason. You can find me here. Find me on Guild Superior. Check out my stuff over there. I'm looking forward to next week very much. If you want, please hang out. We're going to raid some good friends of ours. Roll D5. The game master there, Erica, was recently in my Lord of the Rings game. And great fun together. Awesome person. Beautiful group. M is in there also. I can see right now. Love M also to bits. So we're going to go over there, say hi, give them some love when we pop in. And please come back and see us next week as we delve further into the mysteries of this penny dreadful we call Strange Death in Paradise. Thank you very much, everybody. Have yourselves a good time. Ciao.